They keep asking, who are you really? Because every time they think they've figured you out, you change the rules. One day you're quiet, the next you're unstoppable, soft enough to disappear, sharp enough to cut through expectations. They call it confusion, you call it evolution. You don't wear one face, you master many. And that little magic trick, it terrifies them. Because unpredictable people can't be controlled, and controlled people never become legends. They want a label because labels make things feel safe. A name, a box, a predictable pattern they can point at and say, this is who you are. But identity was never meant to sit still. It breathes, it stretches, it mutates. The moment you freeze yourself just to be understood, you start rotting from the inside. You didn't wake up the same person you were years ago, and that's not a flaw. It's proof you're alive. Growth doesn't ask permission, and evolution doesn't care about comfort. People confuse consistency with truth. They think if you change, you must be fake. Funny thing is, staying the same while the world reshapes itself is the real lie. You adapt because you see more now. You've been hurt, you've learned, you've watched masks fall and promises decay. Of course, you're not the same. Experience rewrites you whether they like it or not. Every version of you was real in its moment, even the broken ones, even the naive ones, even the quiet ones who didn't know their own strength yet. They say, you're different. Yes, that's the point. You outgrew rooms that once applauded you. You shed skins that kept you small. Identity isn't a statue carved once and worshipped forever. It's a moving target shaped by survival, curiosity, and choice. You change your tone because silence taught you something. You sharpen your edge because softness was taken advantage of. You learn when to smile and when not to, not because you're pretending, but because wisdom has consequences. What scares them isn't that you changed. It's that they didn't see it coming. They built expectations around an old version of you, and now reality doesn't match the script. That gap unsettles them. It reminds them that people aren't owned, understood, or finished. You are allowed to contradict who you used to be. You are allowed to walk away from identities that no longer fit. You don't owe loyalty to a past self that was created to survive a situation that no longer exists. An evolving identity means you're paying attention. It means you're experimenting, failing, recalibrating. You're not clinging to one role just to be liked. You're choosing truth over approval. And truth is messy. Truth doesn't repeat itself for the audience's comfort. Truth shows up wearing different faces, depending on the lesson it learned yesterday. They call it confusing because it disrupts their need for certainty. But certainty is fragile. It shatters the moment life applies pressure. You, on the other hand, bend, twist, transform. You don't disappear when things change. You become something else. Every shift adds another layer, another weapon, another escape route. You're not losing yourself. You're collecting yourself in pieces they can't track, can't predict, can't cage. They don't hate your unpredictability because it's dangerous. They hate it because it makes them powerless. Predictable people are easy to manage, easy to manipulate, easy to replace. You can map them, anticipate them, corner them. But you don't move in straight lines. One moment you're silent, watching, letting them underestimate you. The next, you shift, and suddenly the ground feels unstable beneath their feet. That kind of movement breaks systems built on control. Unpredictability isn't chaos for the sake of noise. It's awareness in motion. You read the room, you sense the energy, you adjust. When they expect a reaction, you give restraint. When they expect compliance, you give distance. When they expect weakness, you give precision. They call it inconsistency because they don't understand strategy when it doesn't announce itself. You're not random. You're responsive, and that difference changes everything. People like patterns because patterns make them feel superior. If they know what you'll do next, they believe they're smarter than you. They believe they've solved you. That illusion keeps them calm. But the moment you break pattern, their confidence collapses. Their minds scramble to catch up, to reclassify you, to regain balance. And while they're busy trying to understand, you've already moved on, already shifted position, already rewritten the rules without asking permission. Your unpredictability protects you. It keeps your intentions private. It stops people from weaponizing your habits against you. When no one knows your next move, they can't plan your downfall with precision. They can only guess. Guessing breeds anxiety. Anxiety leads to mistakes. And mistakes reveal who was pretending to be in control. You don't need to be loud or dramatic. Even your silence becomes unsettling when it refuses to follow expectation. They try to shame you for it. They say you're confusing, unstable, hard to read. What they really mean is you're inconvenient. You don't stay where they left you. You don't play the role they assigned. You don't perform the version of yourself that made them comfortable. You evolve in real time, and that evolution doesn't wait for their approval. You understand that power isn't always in force. Sometimes it's in unpredictability, in the pause before the move, in the smile that gives nothing away. The strongest position is the one no one can anticipate. When they can't define you, they can't limit you. When they can't predict you, they can't trap you. You become a variable in their equations, an error in their plans, a question they keep circling but never answer. Your unpredictability turns you into a mirror, reflecting their fear back at them. Because control addicts panic when faced with freedom that refuses to behave. They're obsessed with labels because labels make them comfortable. They need to categorize, to file away, to put you neatly into a box they can carry around in their minds. But you don't live in boxes. You don't exist to satisfy their need for clarity. You are the contradiction they can't resolve, the puzzle with missing pieces, the storm they can't predict. And that scares them more than anything else. Fear loves patterns. It despises the unknown. You are the unknown, wrapped in motion, dressed in unpredictability. And it terrifies them because they can't own it. Every time you shift, every time you show a new layer, they scramble to keep up. Their brains are wired to seek control, to reduce complexity, to assign blame or praise based on a snapshot of reality that is already outdated. You don't wait for their permission to change. You don't pause to make your evolution digestible. You move, you grow, you twist, you vanish, and they are left staring at shadows trying to name a ghost. And the irony: the more they insist on understanding you, the more slippery you become. The more they chase certainty, the faster it escapes their grasp. People fear what they cannot label because control is an illusion tied to understanding. They think if they define you, they can predict your actions, manipulate your reactions, cage your potential. But you are fluid. You learn, you adapt, you morph. Your unpredictability isn't reckless. It's deliberate. It's strategic. It's survival wrapped in artistry. You show them pieces of yourself that serve your purpose, and the rest remains a mystery. You are not a story written for them. You are a story written for yourself, one chapter at a time, and every chapter shifts the narrative they thought they knew. They call it confusing when you contradict yourself. They call it unstable when you refuse to stay in one version. They call it inconsistent when you reinvent your approach, your mood, your priorities. But all of that is a reflection of truth. You are living, breathing, evolving, and living requires movement. Living requires recalibration. Living requires embracing the contradictions, the chaos, the paradoxes that make a person real. And that reality, it makes them uncomfortable because it reminds them they've been pretending to understand a world that doesn't yield to their logic. You are the disruption in their expectation. You are the variable that won't be tamed. And in that disruption lies your power. They can try to pin you down with judgment, with assumptions, with rules, with ridicule. But none of it sticks because nothing about you is static. You are a mirror showing them their fear of unpredictability, their fear of freedom, their fear of not being able to control the narrative. You exist beyond their comprehension, and that is exactly where strength hides. Right in the space they cannot reach, cannot define, cannot own, cannot contain. Mastering many sides isn't a flaw, it's a weapon. They think people are simple, one note, easy to predict. That's why they underestimate you. They expect linear, straightforward behavior, a personality that can be labeled, a story that can be summarized in a paragraph. But you've learned the art of multiplicity. You can smile while scheming, laugh while observing, disappear while dominating. Every side of you serves a purpose, every mask a strategy, every contradiction a shield. They see it as confusing. You see it as untouchable. People fear what they cannot track. They want you to be consistent because consistency gives them confidence, gives them leverage, gives them a blueprint for manipulation. You refuse. You are a storm that refuses to be charted on their maps. You bend, you twist, you shapeshift, and in doing so you keep the upper hand. Predictability is boring. Predictability is exploitable. Unpredictability, multiplicity, adaptability. That is power they cannot wrest from you. You move like water, flow like smoke, and strike like lightning when they least expect it. Each side of you tells a story, but none of those stories belong to them. They don't get to own your emotions, your reactions, your choices. You switch, not to confuse, not to perform, but to protect, to evolve, to conquer. You learned early that showing all of yourself at once is dangerous. Some truths are weapons that only work when revealed at the right moment. Timing is everything. Mystery is everything. And mastery of many sides. That is the ultimate form of defense and offense rolled into one. They label it unpredictability. They label it inconsistency. But it is control in its purest form. You control what they see, when they see it, and how much they understand. You are the illusion of chaos, the orchestrated enigma, the magician who doesn't reveal their tricks. They panic because their assumptions collapse. They panic because they realize the game has changed and they weren't even aware they were playing. They thought they could map you, contain you, predict you. They didn't know they were chasing shadows. Multiplicity gives you freedom. It lets you experiment with your own reality, shape your destiny, and rewrite the rules of engagement without ever asking for permission. Each persona you inhabit, each layer you reveal or conceal, teaches them one thing. You are not theirs to tame. You are not theirs to define. You are not theirs to expect. And that is what terrifies them, the knowledge that no matter how hard they try, they cannot catch you in a net of certainty. You move beyond labels, beyond control, beyond expectation, and every shift reminds them of their own limitations while highlighting your limitless potential. They want simplicity. You give them complexity. They want patterns. You give them chaos. They want answers. You give them questions. And in mastering your many sides, in becoming the unpredictable, evolving, untouchable force they cannot understand, you occupy a space that belongs only to those brave enough to embrace the full spectrum of their own existence. You do not bend for their comfort. You do not settle for their approval. And you do not stop evolving just to be comprehensible.